You've heard Rob Caskey. Rob Caskey. Rob Caskey talks about the battlefield. He talks about the battle of the Santuana, and it's just us. He puts you there in front of 44,000 Zulu warriors with 3,500 British troops and their red outfit behind, and he tells you exactly what it's like to be a British troopie and to be a Zulu warrior, and he speaks with huge reverence for both sides. In fact, he points out in the beginning, he says, you know, that I've discovered this man knows talking about. My gosh, I've never heard anybody know their subject better and express it in such a dramatic way. He says there was never any animosity between the troops and the Zulu. Never. It was absolutely superb. And by the way, Steph came up with the idea that we should have a trip to the battlefield. Okay? It's probably going to happen, but Steph. Yes, I have. Yeah. But no, when I say probably, it's going to be fully booked. You don't want to wind up being one of our next people going on that, because they're going to cost you instead of 3. It's still 3.5 grand a pop. But it's going to be something astonishing. He tells the story on the battlefield. I've heard him speak about Bookstrip. Absolutely stunning. So I've heard the second half as well as now the first half. It's incredible. Then we had Nikki Abdenor. Nikki Abdenor is a psychologist. She's this size. She's got 1.2 meters. She has no arms, and she has also disabled legs. Some people don't like to use the word disabled, but what else can I say? She was wonderful. She shows us a video about how she learned to drive without arms, with her shoulders. And she's started a movement to have motor cars modeled for disabled people in this country. So you have 2 wonderful speakers coming from completely different backgrounds. You had Graham before that, also astounding, and then we had Tim Guard again as a keynote speaker, and he was superb. He tells you how to write your talks with humor. He was just amazing at that. Incredible. Then in the afternoon, we had a new thing, and little did I realize that apparently it's the way things are going. We had a thing called Learning Lounge, and why I look at our president, it's one because I've got my back turned to it. He said she was one of the 6 speakers in the Learning Lounge. The Learning Lounge had 6 15-minute, or was it 20-minute, whatever, 15-minute speakers. Their mandate was to get a point across in that short time. And once again, turning to the speaker magazine, which I see money to have read, which is good, otherwise you'll be bored to death. Speaker magazine says that flash speakers are what it's all about now. 15 minutes is the thing. Only when people have heard what you have to say, they'll decide whether they want to bother to come to a full hour and 90 minutes, which is the standard length for keynotes in the past. So we then that was it. We had the President's Council department, that was in the conference. Now, unfortunately, that was just much too short, because then everybody's into the spirit of it. And I need to tell you, those of you who didn't come and who have never been to one of these, Ron Carr, the head of the NSA, Ron was there. He's a lovely guy. He's a guy from New York. He had a popular accent, but he's got the typical New York accent, and he describes himself as a Jersey boy, which is New York. And you go up to a guy like Ron Cole or a woman like Leslie Everett and say, how did you establish your business? And they'll sit down and they'll tell you. And they'll give you advice. And they'll give you recommendations on how you can improve your business. It's absolutely astounding. And of course, when you get bigger numbers, we have, sadly, a small number of international guests. Hopefully next year, I'm confident that we will, and I'll leave it to Richard to tell you a bit more about it, but why we think we'll have a lot more next year. And you can speak to people who make millions of dollars, real money, dollars as they call them. Lots and lots of dollars, and they will sit and they will tell you how to improve it. You cannot miss another one of these. You really can't. If you're serious about this business, you've got to do it. So that's my bit. I've told you about the conference. I'll sit down.
And now I'd like to call on Richard Mulvey, who is the Vice President of the Cape Town chapter, to share a little bit more about next year's conference. And I think if anything, you have to make it.
Can we run the video first? Sure. Are you ready? Got sound? Yep. That's great. Cape Town, the city of dreams, voted the top holiday destination in Africa and the top 10 best holiday destinations of the world, and the whole PSASA convention in 2015. Being held at the waterfront, number 1 million for tourists, young and old. Take a boarding taxi to see the sights. Or visit one of the 18 world-class restaurants. The waterfront is backed by technology, one of the new 7 wonders of the natural world. With over 230 local and international shops and a favorable exchange rate, it's a shopping paradise. Take a boat trip to Robben Island, when Nelson Mandela spent 80 years in prison. And then join us at the Breakwater Hotel on the site of the old Cape Town prison in the PSASA Convention 2015. 3 days of conferencing and camaraderie, develop the professional relations at the conference that will challenge your thinking to help you grow your speaking abilities. Copy the national speakers, good friends, who've left together for the gala dinner at the Building Night, Takeaway in Town. And you have the recipe for a spectacular weekend. Book now.
I like to get applause as I walk on, and I don't have to worry about it later on. And please don't stand up when I finish. Okay. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about the convention next year. Okay. Where's my bag? Talk about the convention next year. There's a few things we just need to tell you about. Firstly, it's in a prison. It's the old Breakwater prison. The old Breakwater prison, as we all know, was designed for the British when they came over here and built the Breakwater back in 1800 and frozen to death, whenever it was. And they built a prison to house the British prisoners who came to build the Breakwater, and it became a Breakwater prison. And it's a fascinating place because it is literally a prison, and there are lots of prison cells that are hotel bedrooms, and it's going to be a wonderful convention because we're using that. It's called the Breakout Convention, and we're using that theme to run right the way through the convention. So all the things that happen in the convention in the Breakwater Hotel, in any event, are going to do with the way in which we can break out of our old routines and break into what's required of us in the future. To work with that, we're going to have lots of different things. Lots of prison thieves here. So we've got some keys. Now, if you book and pay early for the convention, you get one of these wonderful prison keys. And we have a few people who have already booked and paid. I have the list here. By the way, this is Charlotte who's doing this, not me. I am being deputised here. Myself, honoured by the duties I've been given here. And we've got 3 keys. Number 7, what number is this? Number 9. This is for Roger. You've already booked and paid. Well done. number 7. This is number 8. Oh, that's Claire. Well done, Claire. Motion paid. Okay, thank you. And then number 7, I hope, yes, number 7 is there, Chantal. There you go. I have no idea how many keys there are, but there aren't many. So if you want one of these keys, you're going to have to book and pay early. Now, the exciting thing about the keys is that there is a very big prize for one of the people who's got the keys. So when you get there, at the convention, we will draw out of those people, they're all numbered, so we will draw, but you must bring your key. If you lose your key, you're not going to get the prize. We're going to have a lot of fun at this convention. It's a full convention, it's a full Friday through to Sunday convention. The gala dinner, which is going to be spectacular, is in the best hotel in Cape Town. I don't mean the one and only. We tried to get into the one and only. They just wouldn't let us in the front door. I mean, that was it. But we booked the Table Bay Hotel, which is magnificent. And it's going to be a glorious gala dinner. You all have to go and dress up for this. This year, only a few people came in their dinner jackets, but the tuxedos, it's going to be fun, it's going to be exciting, no expenses being spared. Yeah? So it's going to be a lot of fun. I have one other duty. Has anybody else booked and paid, by the way, for the convention? I have one other key here. Now, if you want this, you can get online now, book and pay, and so long as you can prove you can pay, you have paid, you get this key before I go back to Cape Town tomorrow. So if anybody wants this, I'm going to hang on to this, so you just have to prove that you booked and paid. The reason why those 3 people have booked and paid so far is because they're mean. They got it at the cheap rate. But there is still cheap rates going. So please feel free to book and pay for it, and you get this last key. I have one last duty, and that's because I'm going to go on here. Okay. And again, this is Charlotte and not me, but I'm here, and she's not, so I have to present this. This is a bottle of wine, comes from the Cape Town chapter, and it's my glorious responsibility to give it to Chantal. So if you'd like to come and collect a bottle of wine, before I read something, I was told, yeah, you nearly got it, didn't you? Yeah.
I know it's organic.
It comes with a straw, so you don't have to. But I want to read something. I was looking at it yesterday, and I was told I have to read out about it because it is organic, absolutely right, and I know you're very much into these things. And it's eco-friendly, and it's fair for life, social, and fair trade certification, so it's fair trade stuff. But right at the bottom here, you won't be able to see this, you just have to trust me. There's all sorts of little warnings and things. And there's a circle with a line through it, like a no smoking sign, you know, but it's got a pregnant lady in it. So I'm not sure whether if you drink this wine you don't get pregnant. Or maybe it is, I don't know. Anyway, it's yours. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, that's it. Don't miss this brilliant.
Do you know, I really love organic, and I used to get those at the Edinburgh, the food lovers market, and they don't stock them anymore. So I'm really quite disappointed about that. So thank you. Makosi, I'm going to put the wine down first.
What are the issues?
Thank you. Makosi is our vice at the Durban Chapter Club. And so can we do that? We have a break at about 7. Thank you very much. Makosi is our vice president, so I'd like you to welcome him because he has a few conferences too that he's been on that I asked him, please could you give us feedback. And I think this is a very vital part of our organization, as I will explain a little bit later to you as well. Makosi.
Okay, we're kind of pressed for time, so I'll be straight into the point. All I can do really to start is to echo the comments of the last speakers, to say it's kind of difficult to encapsulate what happens at national conventions, the AGMs, and the only way to understand fully what it's about is to go. I want to be to 2, and I can't wait to get to Cape Town. And for those of you who are guests or members who have attended, I think the time to start saving is right now to attend conventions and get the full value of being in a speaking organization like we are. Now, writers write, speakers speak. So I did a 2-in-1 and I attended a convention on how to write. And there I attended a seminar presented by James McNeil, presented the Jerry Roberts technique about how you can write a book and grow rich. I'll just break down maybe some couple of nuggets. They said essentially when you write a book, it's not about the book. The chance of you being the next J.K. Rowling? Yes. Or Tolkien, 1 in a million. If it happens, great. But the whole point and essence of a book is to set yourself apart from others. The whole point of a book is for you to have that calling card, the bragging rights. So whether you're an estate agent, whether you're a speaker, Mitchell was talking about the fact that people are saying keynotes are down from 7% to 30%. You might want to look at branching out into maybe conferences, seminars, whatever else you can do with the gift you are blessed with, that's communicating and inspiring people and giving all these various facets. So the point of a book really is saying to the world, this is me. I'm different because I'm an author. There's something magical, mysterious about when somebody presents themselves to you as an author. And they made us do an exercise to say, if you are to be able to write a book, and then say to the field you normally work in, you know what, I've got this book. There's something about being an author. But what it does really is, it's not really a book. You will not make more money from a book. If you do, good luck to you. However, what it does do is to get your foot in the door. There's something about being an author. And the quote, or the something that they said that really inspired me was to say, once you have a book and you're in this game to be at the top of your game, the top of your game is to earn the respect of those you respect. And when you've done that, then you're really, really on top of your game. So the long short of it is I've been inspired to write a book because I want to be able to grow my speaking business. Because if you are booked as a speaker, and the thing about it is that you are also an author, it sets you apart. It's been spoken about, I think, in previous meetings. I think Anna Chris as well, and possibly Anna Claire, that encouraging us to write books. But this, to me, it finally makes sense. It was my aha moment. I attended 2 seminars. The most recent one was about 3 weeks ago on why I should write a book. What they did was very interesting and very American. They come and teach you how to do it yourself. And then say, however, if you'd like us to do it for you, then you do so. Anybody want to hazard a guess what they were charging? They said, from now to 6 months, you will have a book in hand. Anybody hazard a guess?
A ghost written book.
No, ghost written, but it will be your book.
Yeah.
What they were charging?
40,000.
40,000, 30?
They're deeper, 100,000.
Any other figure? 300,000.
Oh, right.
They put it up in dollars, so it looks different. Then they said, for a special, we'll break it down to 129,000. But if you see the model that they have, it's absolutely amazing. It goes from how you can recreate before you actually launch a book. It goes from how all you really need is the cover of a book and introduce yourself. And then you must have your marketing, you must have your media, and everything else must be positioning you as an author. So the whole system, they will help you do that.
I was going to say, you must do that for the market. So.
Exactly. The things you can do it, but the thing about it, you need to look at the cost-benefit analysis and say, you know what, if they were doing it, and if I do it piecemeal, will it be as excellent and superb as they would? And that's the whole point.
Cost a lot less than 300 grand.
Well, you need to make the assessment from what you know and what you see. It means to me that I will be knocking on your door and say, please promote my book as much as you can. And if you haven't written a book, this is the value of writing a book, is that it opens more doors for you and you get to have extra sources of income than just doing what you normally do. So that's what I put out of it. So I'm looking forward to I've given myself a very tight deadline, but I think in 4 months the book will be out. Thank you.
Would it be okay just for me to say a word? There is a book C within the PSASA. Jacques de Villiers is running it, and it's a very good special interest group. And if you are serious about writing a book, join the special interest group. There's, I think, about 12 members, and they help each other write books.
Okay, so thanks. On that, last convention I bought your book.
Working title.
Working title, yeah, Roger did, he just forgets, you know, when you get his age.
When you've written as many.
The book's special interest group is really worth joining, and Jacques will help you. We all need help, so it's worth joining.
Then we have a tie-in, if I could just add something to that. QuickBooks Publishing, who was one of our sponsors at our convention, would charge 30,000 rand for doing the layout, the cover, etc., but you don't get 100 copies out of that. It would save you a lot of work, but Buzz Richard and I have published books in the past. He's done about 10 times as many as I have, a lot more. And we've done it all ourselves. It's possible, it's a doable thing. So you can do it. It's a bit of PC. Doing the layout and having the cover designed, you know, the front figure. It was 30 grand. Well, if we did it ourselves, I don't know, I haven't done one for a while. What does it cost these days to publish a book?
Well, because print on demand is so simple, you don't have to publish many copies or print many copies. The hard part is writing the book and then laying it out and getting the cover. The cover's critical, and that should be done by somebody else. You shouldn't have done it. But the cost is minimal. Actually, getting 100 copies, you know, if it's say 65,000 word book, which is about an inch thick, it costs you about 2,500 rand for 100 copies. So it's not a lot of money to print them, but the hard part is getting help with the editing and the cover and the structure.
Great, and that's the wonderful thing about going to conventions. You meet all kinds of people there, and stop doing local is lacquer. Local is lacquer, but now we're going to extend a bit more. And before I call up Stephen to tell us a little bit about membership, if we come up to that again, is that we've spoken about 6 groups, special interest groups. I will be sending them out to you with the contact names so you can see which one you'd like to join. And then also I collated all the topics that you guys were interested in, so I'll send you that as well. And one of them was about ebooks and publishing, self-publishing. And I think the most amazing one at the convention, I couldn't be at her talk because I was speaking in another room, but that's exactly what she does. And I said, I've got 20 years of stuff on my shelf, but I haven't read a book yet. I haven't written a book yet. What she does is she takes your stuff and she does the book for you, and she actually assists you with putting that book together, and then depending on where you want it, but her speciality is an ebook. So it's just something to keep in mind, you know? Let the professionals do what they do at as well. So a little bit more about our membership. Thank you.
Hi, the committee has asked me to remind everyone or point this out that if every one of us undertook to bring in a guest every 3 months, so just one guest to come to our meetings every 3 months, if one person every month accepted and joined PSASA, we'd be able to double our membership within 12 months. So we're asking that you please try and bring people in. I think with this new venue, there's even more rationale, because now everyone gets a free meal, you get networking, you make contacts, and you can learn about professional speaking business. So it makes quite good sense to pay that 200 rand to come in and attend one of our meetings. So please think about who you can get to come in. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Stephen. And Stephen is part of the committee as well. And Stephen is also going to be responsible for membership. So if you know anybody that you'd like to bring, then please, I'm going to send you those details as well. But Stephen is the one to contact. We'll look after them at the meeting here. We'll follow up with them the next day and see if it's something that they are interested in. And just to clarify, if you bring one person every quarter, that's 4. If you get one person to sign up, then each person has brought one person that here as a member, we needed to double that. It's not too difficult. Okay? Not too difficult to do. In fact, it's very easy, and I challenge you to do that. We are going, yes.
May I just encourage you to continue with the Friends of the Durban chapter. I worked really hard on that. We had a lot of people coming in as guests, not all of them joined, as you know, but it brought in a hell of a lot of people, and we actually, well, I can talk about it later, but I really, really want to encourage you to pick that up again.
Claire, that was a lot of work on your part. I received that there's actually 67 people on that list that does not come to this meeting who are potential new members. So imagine, that is absolutely awesome. I contacted each member here, but I just couldn't get through the 67. So we will divide it amongst the committee and then perhaps settle that personally, not just send them an email. So thank you, Claire.
It was a big
just
list.
discussed it in the committee.
Yeah, I was checking with you.
Well, 67. Yes.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a bit too much for me to do this stuff. Any other questions on that? No. All right. Cindy, we're going to call you up for your picture kucha. For those of you who are visiting for the first time, picture kucha is a 6-minute slideshow that is timed. You can see the timer running along the bottom. Try not to be distracted, because I found that last month when I was listening to Stevens, who did a demonstration picture kucha, I was just watching that little time thing. There's a slide. Is he going to finish his sentence, or if he's still listening to the sentence and the slide is finished, then how's he going to make up the time? So please try not to be distracted and stuff like that, you know. And so it's 6 minutes, and it's 20 slides, so it's an automatic changer. And I really wanted to say thank you to Cindy, because we mentioned last, this is the opportunity to breathe, you know, chucking away, is she was the first one that said, hey, let me try this. I want to try this. Yes. And what we're going to do is every month we're going to have a picture kucha. And you can either speak about your business or what you do in your business, or selling yourself, that you can actually use that as your demo DVD. There are many uses or applications for this picture kucha. So Cindy, over to you, and enjoy it.
Let's stop with that. You know I've got 20 seconds. Thank you. Good evening, fellow PSA members. I would like you this evening to think, take care, and be aware on the subject of HIV and AIDS. By way of introduction, my name is Cindy Pivacic, as in Jurassic. Not quite old, that old, but it's close. My first screen is a little bit slow, so I have time. I am who I am, mainly by default. I am a speaker, an IEC facilitator, an activist, a trainer and author on the Daily Seducer, and an accredited services training provider for Services CETA. I am who I am. Your approval is not required. Think. T, are you talking? H, are you helping? I, are you inquisitive? You have to be nosy to get anybody in this world. Are you negative? And I don't mean that by HIV negative. Negative people rub off at other people. Don't be negative. You have to be a little bit crazy to be able to talk about the subject that I'm discussing with you right now. I have been living positively with HIV and AIDS since 2004. It need not be a death sentence. We are all going to die. It is just a matter of what you do with your life in between that really matters. I say everything as it is, and if you don't like it, tough. I have gone through various afflictions, namely pneumonia, shingles. I've had 2 strokes, one in 2005, one in 2006. I suffered from TB meningitis. I had short-term memory, extreme short-term memory. I also had cancer, namely angioimmunoblastic lymphadenopathy. And yes, I can spell it. HIV is the human immune virus. AIDS, people tend to forget, is the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Viral load is the amount of virus in your system. The CD4 count is the amount of fighter cells you have. Your CD4 count has to be high, your viral load low. I had to either adapt or die. I chose to adapt. Attitude, which I apparently have a lot of, it seems sometimes, determination. I ask a lot. Perseverance, and to trust. I had to learn to trust and tell someone about my status to get the support that I required. Oh, I caught up. As South African citizens have the ostrich in the sand syndrome. We are all at risk right across our culture age group, our partners, travelers, everybody is at risk, and especially our travelers in this sort of age group and this level of person. We think we aren't, but it does affect everybody in the working community. The responsibility is the parents to start with, then the educational institutions, as well as us being the people that must share information, because it does belong to us. We need to engage in dialogue, and we need to set boundaries with children, with the people that are in our relationships. We need to do that. Just a couple of facts and figures. We had 99,000 pregnancies in South Africa in 2012. 77,000 of those people had abortions, and that was only in the clinics, the local clinics. 28% of girls and 4% of boys are infected in our school-going children. Oh, okay, so yeah. 52 million South Africans, 400,000 new infections in 2012. That is unacceptable. 1,000 new infections every single day. Of the population, 6.4 million are known that are infected. 20% of the world's ARVs are used by South Africans. It is better to know your status than not know, because at least you can get the support from people around you. If you know your status, you can take preventative measures, you can avoid getting reinfected, but you can get a super infection if you are infected by somebody else, reinfected by somebody else with a different strain of virus, of which there are 16. We need to speak. We need to take. We need to get a bill of responsibility. We tend to forget that. Know your status. Do not assume you are HIV negative unless you have tested. Don't be like the frog in that deep warm water, and slowly that water rises and burns you, and then it's too late to do anything about your situation. Ignorance can be educated, and crazy can be medicated, but stupidity, there is no cure. Sorry, I get myself talking. I've been very fortunate to be in the media, to market myself. I've been in the marketing arena for many years. I've been on Carte Blanche, SABC1, 1KZN TV, a couple of radio stations, except for East Coast Radio. They ignore me. And I was also on the FNV ad, You Can Help campaign. Here, my book, The Deadly Seducer, I had the good fortune of having Charlotte Kemp, who most of you know, to do the back page of my book. And she was very, very kind about how she portrayed me, saying there was a bold and honest account of my story. I brought a lot of energy apparently into it to help other people that are living with HIV and AIDS. I present workshops on the subject as a trained program services seater. I have got that facility to offer as well. It also assists in destigmatizing the secret cure. That is from Charlotte's point of view. From my point of view, I wrote the book. I've given 36 questions and answers so that people don't actually know what they have to ask, so they don't know their answers. It gives hope, helps remove the stigma, and I've used the book as a means of support for the counselling centre that I have. It can be good and it can be bad. When I went on Carte Blanche in 2012, there was a lot of discussion about it. But if you do know, if you do disclose your status, you can take responsibility for it. But on the other hand, a bad point is people will not test, so that they cannot be put into the limelight, for want of a better word. And here we go. My contact details, and if all else fails, please feel free to Google Dr. Google. You'll find me on there. Thank you very much.
Well, I understand completely. You do naturally speak quickly.
I do.
Come on, okay. Lovely. Our next picture is going to be done by Chris, our immediate past president. So please let's welcome Chris. Thank you. Chris, would you like to take turn for today's?
I need to stand here to speak. So can I stand in a way to speak? You know what, I'm going to stand over there like Cindy, but I think it's just better than that. This is absolutely nerve-wracking. It's quite terrifying. You get on a roll with this thing, and you just got to keep going. It's really nerve-wracking. I recommend you try it, but you're laughing, Steve, but you know what I mean. Steve did a brilliant one last month. It really isn't it? Okay, can I go? There you go. Okay, for the next 6 minutes or so, I'd like to ask you to consider your own mindset towards other people. A kind of a, if I'm meant to love my neighbor, who the hell is my neighbor? Why should I love them? Why is it possibly a good thing for me and for the universe? In other words, it's the concept of sharing that I'd like you to think about. You know, in the early 1620s, this rather dark-looking gentleman, it's not a very flattering portrait, I don't think, wrote a poem, which of course all of you will know, and in fact it's become one of the most quoted and repeated poems of all time. No man is an island, entire of itself. Man is a piece of the continent, every man, a part of the man. And it's interesting because there's actually an African people's translation of this poem, or sort of a translation, if you like, using great economy of language, and with arguably no knowledge of John Donne and his 400-year-old poem. The people who coined this concept managed to get it into one simple word. Wikipedia describes Ubuntu as humanness, to be human. Some describe it as humanity and humility. The little guy in the purple robes, who we all know, says that it's knowing that he or she belongs in a greater whole and is diminished when others are diminished. That sounds rather rough, like John Donne to me. It's about inclusion. It's about sharing. It's about looking out for each other. And it's something none of us probably do very well. We've all grown up with that pervasive culture of, this is mine. I worked damn hard for it, and I'm not sharing it with you. In fact, the reason I've got it is to show that you have it. It's what Robert Cabot talked about when he was getting the NSA and indirectly the PSA off the ground in the late 60s. And for us, we've talked about and it's become known as the spirit of Cabot. He said, don't worry about how we divide up the pie, there's enough for everybody. Let's just make a bigger pie. Well, I have to say, when I first heard about the spirit of Cabot, I thought people were talking about Big Cabot, who you might remember, who was a talk show host quite a long time ago. Well, actually, they weren't. However, in the spirit of Robert, or Dick, who seemed to be a very nice man, Chantal, who is a PSA friend of mine, put my name forward to an organization looking for specialist speech teachers, and thereby introduced me to a whole new industry, the ubiquitous call center. We use the word ubiquitous because it's everywhere. We all know picking up the phone, experiencing someone on the phone who puts you in a very bad mood, either because they're trying to sell something you don't want, or you're trying to get a complaint or something put across and they don't understand what you're talking about and you don't understand them. Of course, it's interesting as an aside that not very long ago when we went away from the office, we had to use that to actually get a message to home or the office. Of course, ours don't look like that, and they weren't usually in working order. Nevertheless, that was our only option. In the space of 20 years or so in this country, we've moved to a place where we are constantly in touch with each other. In fact, it's almost impossible to be out of touch. People now plan holidays so they can be away from their cell phones. And then, of course, they spend 2 weeks saying, why can't I get any damn reception out here? We're addicted to these things. But of course, often today, we get calls we don't want at all. Calls from people we don't know, and who we don't particularly want to know, and people who we don't understand. In case you can't work it out, this lady is you. She's saying, who the hell are you? Why are you phoning me? Where did you get my number? And what are you talking about? I think we all know that experience. However, the lady you speak to on the other side is unlikely to be Anglo-Saxon, English-speaking, and is more likely to have the home language of Gujarati, Zulu, or Xhosa, or Sotho, or possibly even Mandarin, and will speak English with a very strong accent. Perish the thought. What is it about us English speakers that makes us so uncharitable about our language? What is it about an accent different to our own that makes us so irritable and impatient and judgmental? And what sort of English person do we have in mind when we say, I wish these people could speak English like the English? We're talking about the Scots, the Irish, the Welsh, from Yorkshire, from Liverpool, Cockney, Cornish, Australian, American, they're all English born. I went to a large call centre near where I live the other day. The sales director, who was teaching the local Indian sales agents how to speak better English, is from Liverpool. I mean, recently from Liverpool. I spent the entire meeting saying, sorry, I beg your pardon, What did you just say? Every word he said. He is English born. Can you imagine the local Stanger Indian gent speaking local Stanger Indian English with a Liverpool accent? So the Englishman, in fact, is doing more harm than good in that situation. Speech and accent and the way we communicate is a very touchy subject. But I sometimes wonder why we have to be so possessive and proprietary about it. For me, it links to the concept of sharing. We don't want to share our language unless the other person can play with it nicely, not do it any damage, and return it in the shape that they received. Which is why it never fails to amaze me how enthusiastically the young people I'm working with a lot at the moment respond to the training and the coaching. They listen, they try, they work really hard at learning to speak a kind of standard English. Of course, Trevor Noah has helped. Even though us all laugh at ourselves, and we use them a lot in the training. There was an interesting article written by a guy, Stephen de Groote, who was a 702 radio jock or something, during the Pistorius trial about how the arrogance of the English language, almost like God must be English speaking. I don't know about black, but certainly English speaking. Maybe he's black as well. And I remember how one can get irritated by that American know-it-all attitude. And I think we've got that reputation now in other parts of Africa, South Africans. The answer is about a global kind of sharing, where we share everything. Our opportunities, our language, our cultures, our eccentricities, even our food, and our humanity, and we learn from each other. The concept of sharing, applauding, encouraging others, is more important to mankind now than ever. No man is an island entire of itself. Any man's death diminishes me, because I'm involved in that kind, and therefore never seem to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Thank you.
Lovely, very brave. Our two picture coaches following Stephen's last month. Yes. Okay. And I think it's really a great technique as a discipline to keep us focused. I don't know if I'd use it all the time. I'm not sure I would, but I think definitely as a training for us, I think it's very good to do. So we're looking for next month's Petra Kucha. Next month? Yes. Makosi, Steve, will you please write it down for me? Makosi and Fred. Fred. Fantastic. I've never heard Fred speak. Well.
I just have to say, Chantal, it's a hell of a discipline.
Yeah.
It is, I don't know if you found that, Cindy. This is bloody hard work.
It is.
It really is. It's such a discipline to get these words economically into where they've got to fit, and then do the thing in such a way that, because you're driven by that timeline. I think it's a very good discipline for all speakers, actually. I certainly found that. I found it very hard to do.
Thank you. And I think it will just keep us on purpose. Just a thing, and we are not going to be evaluating them or anything like that. And I really don't mean to embarrass anybody or take it personally, but I think we're beyond here. We are here to learn. Is the pictures are very useful. Please remember Makosi and Fred. Definitely do not put more than 7 lines and 7 words across. Too much information to read on one screen. And then also, please bring your own laptop. So you have your laptop, you put it where you feel is comfortable, so that when the slide changes, you're looking at it here, and you're not having to turn back to the screen. So please do remember your own laptop. If you don't have one that you can bring along, then just let me know, and you can use mine.
That being said, Chantal, I mean, Chris did really well with those handwritten notes. I mean, they were on the dot every time we finished the thing. He didn't have to look up much.
Yes.
I mean, you obviously rehearsed that a hell of a lot. So.
Well, the thing is that I don't think I could, I really needed the script, because I realized there's no way I could just fly, although I knew the script fairly well, I had learned it off by heart. But I thought, I cannot do this without the script. It was a little security blanket for me.
Yes. Thank you. I think this technique is going to be particularly good for Roger and myself, regarding the discipline of not adding in or embellishing stories. Yes.
Is it not don't you become dependent on your notes though? Did you
In this short sort of instance, I think it is valuable to have the notes. In a normal keynote presentation, It's a totally different story.
Yes, it is. I think you're right though, Robin. I would prefer not to have the notes because I just don't think it looks good. Stand there with these pieces of paper. It doesn't look professional. But all I know is that Cindy's was slightly different because she was talking to the slides. And a lot of the information was on the slide. I had written a script that I just then randomly chose photographs for. So I still needed the script. But you're right, it's better without it.
This is very valuable. We'll take one question.
Toastmasters, I have a standard time for their talks, which is 6.5 to 7 minutes. And the whole aim is to do it without notes, and that's what you do. You do a 6-minute talk without notes at all. And that's what you're striving for. But so, yeah.
Thank you, Claire. And just please remember that every single person in this room is at a different level. Okay, so we can't compare
I'm quite a low level, so I really
That was my first year.
We are all speaking at totally different levels, in totally different arenas, and we are all here to learn, to help each other. So let's rather learn and make the mistakes in here rather than in front of your client or doing a sales pitch to a potential client. Let's rather do it here. Okay. So what I'd like to do before we go out to tea is I'd like to start off McCausey, and half a minute. I really just need a sentence or two. Your name, because some of the guests we haven't seen for a long time, and so it's your name and a sentence, what you do or the business that you run. Okay? McCausey.
Hi, my name is Makosi. I'm on radio, but I do have a media consultancy as well. And my big battle is to set up a business that seeks to define me more as having more than just radio communications for the world. So I'm here to grow my speaking business.
New professional speakers. My name is Stellan Gobu. Our name is my first time here.
Relax. Enough for a big break.
Don't worry, we're all couple.
I drink. Alright, I'm a marketing officer at SID APT College in South Coast of Chepstow. I also own a company called Magnificent Minds. I'm a registered life coach, and I am also a life skills and executive leadership trainer.
Okay.
Awesome.
And I'm Claire Newton, and I am a psychologist, speaker, trainer, coach, and hat lover. And I'm thrilled to have my tea to myself.
Remember to speak up, please. Ramesh.
I'm Ramesh Ramkumar. I'm the author of the best-selling book, Being Human. Currently writing my second bestseller, Mother Earth, Father Sky, the story of timeless intimacy. I'm also a certified Coleman hydrotherapist, studied alternative health modalities, discovered a way over the last 20 years to reverse practically any disease provided it is not too far gone into its degenerate stage. I've worked with many thousands of people and brought them back from the brink of death as well. I'm currently working on somebody who's got kidney failure and is cited for dialysis and will save his kidneys. Have a health center as well where people come and stay over with us from far and wide and overseas too. If they're suffering from any disease, come to me, I'll reverse it.
My name is Chris Boise, and I spent many years in the corporate world, in marketing and training, sales, that kind of stuff. And in the last few years, I decided to go on my own. I'm a coach, trainer, and facilitator, and I'm trying to break into the professional speaking market more effectively.
I'm Barbara Johnson. My company is Leadership Dimensions. I counsel, I coach through trauma, through transformation, through transcendence, and hopefully together on community projects. I have a degree in logotherapy. I'm the only logotherapist in the province, and I'm looking to assist, upgrade, help professionals, psychologists, doctors, teachers, and the like who help other people with the work of Viktor Frankl's meaning and purpose of life.
I'm Stephen Smith. I work with UNESA Foundation, and we're a people development and educational NPO. And one of the things that we do is we're opening up centres of online learning, little mini e-campuses in townships and rural areas, where young people who've been left out of the system, people that can't get to universities or can't get into FET colleges, people that don't have the money and the resources or maybe the marks to get into those sort of institutions, can come and do free online learning. That's free, massive open online courses, free MOOCs, and get job skills and life skills at the same time in our centers. So far, we're optimizing 47 centers that have been started by PSASA, one of the government institutions. And it's really exciting work, and passion of the young people and working with young people is a blessing, and we get as much out of it as our young people. Thank you.
Mohammed Wahid. I've been for about 30 years in the legal and banking profession, and for the past 6 weeks as a consultant on my own, finding my feet. And I'm an author. I specialize in speaking, in caring for the disabled, and yeah, just finding my feet.
Thank you. Great.
Make sure you get your good side.
Okay, I'm Richard Mulvey. I'm an out-of-work actor. I am sometimes sales speaker, also amateur trombone player. And I'm delighted to hear Mohammed has finally given up his job. About this time last year, we were chatting about, I said, you can't do both. And I cited Roger, who's tried to be a speaker for 18 years or something, and he's still an attorney, and he's still not a full-time speaker. You can't do both, and I'm delighted that you have now finally given up your day job and you've taken your work seriously. Well done. So that's me.
Hi, I'm Lalian Das. I'm an educator by profession, and I've done a master's degree in philosophy. My thesis being spirituality as a source of nation building, problems and issues in the modern context. And Stephen and I visited a conference for youth leadership at DHS on Saturday, and we had about 200 students. So my target audience is youth 18 to 35, hopefully, because I teach on the philosophy of Vedanta, which is the art and skill of living life gracefully and beautifully, as a human being should. So anybody interested in the topic would welcome to approach me later. Thank you.
I mean, is anybody under 35?
Oh, me.
I'm Jessica Gowden. I'm an attorney in private practice for the past 15 years. I'm a motivational speaker. I haven't been doing it professionally, but that's why I'm here to take it to the next level. And my main area of focus is, women's rights advocacy. And I'm also a yoga lover.
You're pretty much where you are, and all I want to say is I'm going to Cape Town at the end of June. Good. Wow. Wow. I will be looking. That's what we're enjoy the Cape Town. Yes. I'm staying the same.
She's already an honorary member. She's down the road from us. Yeah. Can't get rid of her.
They're trying, but she's just following.
Thank you. Wendy?
Okay, my name is Wendy Sires. I do training. I've got a CT accredited training organisation. My background was nursing. So I do first aid training, CPR training, and then I also do other CT accredited assessor, moderator, facilitator training.
Harold.
My name is Harold Robinson. I'm in a profession that's not known for good speaking. I'm an engineer. But in spite of that, I like to tell people what to do. So I run an industrial engineering consultancy and training business.
Well, as Richard told you, I'm Roger Miles. I'm an attorney and mediator and professional speaker, and I help people solve their problems with a minimum of tears, wasted relationships, and wasted money.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. Robin.
I am with Speakers Inc. We are represent speakers, training, entertainment, security, and to interact with you guys and to see all. I specifically like to hear when you've got something new to talk about. It's nice for me to know what's new and what's up and what you do. That's great.
Thank you for being here, Robin. And Tristan.
You're going to meet me a bit more just now, but I'm just a medicine. I've got an honors degree in behavioral ecology, animal behavior of humans, wild animals to be more specific. Leaving in the bush after 8 years there, I had to do something to make some money after my family, so I took up ski for a couple of months. Right now I'm general manager of the Safari Park up in Drummond, and we'll see a bit more into my life and what I'm looking at.
Thank you very much, Tristan. And as Chantal Jordan, I have a business called Expressions, and I love sharing with people either speaking or training regarding how you can harness your emotions. So it's emotional intelligence. And then at the convention, I spoke about ethics and ethics as a speaker. There are so many opportunities opening up for me regarding that particular topic. It's amazing that not much has been done on that in the PSASA. So I'm really looking forward to doing a bit more. All right, we are going to have a very short break. You can see I'm a health fanatic. So there's water in front of you, and the loos are down the passage at the end. And you, yes, if you need to go and visit, please be seated in about 10 minutes. If there's any questions that you have or anything that you'd like to add to the agenda at the end, then please tell me now so that I can include it. And then we are breaking immediately after Tristan's presentation, which will be around about 35 minutes. Then he's got a video for us, a very short 5-minute video. And then we're going to open it up to discussion. And we're going to ask him questions like, how did you get where you are so quickly? Because you can see he could probably still fit in under the 25-year-olds. So 35. Younger than 35. Must be nature that's keeping us very young. But then we're going to be asking him questions about how he made himself so in demand, how he's connected with CNN possibly. He's been in the Men's Health magazine. He's been voted or nominated one of the top 200 in South Africa as game changers. Yeah. And how did he do all of this in such a short period of time? So as you're listening to his presentation, yes, of course, you're interested in what he does. I'm committed to conservation as well. And I like all the green that's coming out in PSA, by the way. And that's right, drink water during the break, please. So then you're going to be given an opportunity to actually ask him questions. So as you're listening to the presentation, it's not really about what's there, although that is fascinating, it's interesting. I want you to be thinking about how he put this together and how he's got to where he is in such a short period of time. Okay. Enjoy your 10-minute break, and we'll see you back here.
Can we have a shot of your organic wine?
Pass it around.
You may die.
Needs a glass of wine.
What are you going to run to? Just sorry. What I did in the nutrition last year. And it was pretty wonderful. That's true.
Not a handy. You know how to start it? So you can just possess something. So someone is making it. But I'm kind of crazy to be, I want to get into out of it, and it's so much kind of my business.
Sounds good. I look forward to seeing it. As you say,
And the economy is not a church cost. It's not a training facility. Not a you just get up there and we're not preaching. It's only because I didn't mention it. It's a full setup. You do that walking from home. You just get up and go. This is just like, you can do this if you have well, because I'm saturated with it, something because your audience needs slightly different things to get into it.
It's 10 past 7.
Many thanks. Thank you. And Mrs. Fish, thank you. Thank you.
Everyone's going to take up our banking because the savings took on just trading.
Makuzi, I'm leaving this box over here.
Okay.
So as they pass, you know, you can just pop it in or you can take it from there. Thank you. Just doing you good, huh? You see, we've got the professionals run already. We need that return because otherwise we're missing another victim. Thank you very much. All right, that's it for the laptop.
Anything that's
Moderator, or I do.
Okay, I will pause you. Pause you. I can't hear the moving cat.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so excited. It's been a pipeline quite a long time before even Charlotte left, before even Mary Ann left, and I was very jealous when they left. But all of a sudden it happened over a weekend. We came to together. Yeah. And everything was like that. So yeah, I can't wait to get done there. Sorry.
Oh, what have you done now?
Can't wait.
Oh, no, we're looking forward to it. Built-in babysitter perfect.
Extra warm.
I love it.
So that when she goes down, okay, to move into her place.
They're all still.
So, Christina's at this video or whatever. Are you ready?
Yeah, very good. So it's all falling into place? Brilliant. Brilliant. That's
Excuse me, I will correct you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your break. And now we're going to start our next session with a guest speaker, Tristan Dixon. And he is going to be speaking to us about the conservation of South African leopards. I have not heard his other presentation, which is the conservation of the Tibetan leopards, which he spent 4 years in the snow. But I'm sure you're going to hear about that a little bit later. Great. So if you will give a warm welcome, Tristan. Thank you.
Let me introduce myself, so at least put that out of the way. The one part I haven't told you about, I've got many jobs, being a conservationist, you work for many organizations, etc. Panthera is the one I have to thank for my leopard work. I've been working with them for 8 years. They're an organization to conserve the cat species throughout the world. Look them up, panthera.org. And you're going to see a little trailer later. What I did first is I'm making a documentary, so a book is on my cards, and I agree with you with everything you said, but I thought, well, let's start with the documentary. So we're going to see the trailer to my documentary. It's not finished, it's about 1 month away from being finished. But Panthera, you know, that's the organization that I've been with throughout my leopard conservation work. I have done rhino conservation, I have ambushed poachers, I have dealt with the police and organized crime and intel and all of that. And I'm a director of a conservation fund where we raise money for informing police for rhinos. So I do a lot of conservation work, but my passion all along has been leopards. So we're going to go on a little bit of a journey through what I've done in the last 8 years, ending with a trailer, which I hope you'll enjoy, and then it will give us something to talk about a little bit stuff. So the main thing is that, you know, Panthera, their objective is to conserving the remaining 36 cat species. And then they put a lot of focus on the key species, and leopards is one of these key species. Again, when we're talking now, giving you content, the whole content is to keep you awake. But it's all about how we use our voices to save animals, then now how I'm using my voice to look after myself. So the main thing is leopards are widespread. Their range, they occur throughout Africa, Asia, and whenever someone sees this map, they're like, why are we conserving leopards? You know, what about the tigers? What about the lions? Tigers are very much, the reality is there's 4,500 in the wild, but so the whole problem with tiger conservation is reactive. We want to do conservation with leopards. Lions, 30,000 leopards in the wild. 30,000 lions left in the wild. They're in huge trouble. Everyone's now throwing all their money into lions, trying to save the lions. But what's another reactive? We can't do the same with rhinos. You know, we try to do it all too late. With leopards, we're going to look at why we conserve them. If we do something now, we can save them. As tiger numbers go down, lion numbers go down, all the pressure moves on to leopards. So let's do something now about it. We've got the knowledge, we've got the conservation initiatives, we can save them now. So if you look at their range, widespread range, we look at Africa, big green blob. What we don't know much about leopards, they're elusive. How do you even count them? How many people get to see them in game reserves? How are we trying to say, well, they're in Africa, so it's alright. If you go to Biggin and when you start looking into that big green blob, there's big holes in it, massive holes. And where that do occur, they occur at much lower densities, and this is a concern of us. So it's not a great map, but you can kind of see there's a light grey line where the historical ranges, and the dark is the current range. Now already they've lost over 30% of their home range. And within that, they have much lower densities. So because they're elusive, etc., we just can't ignore them. We can't ignore them. They're in big trouble. Everyone loves numbers. Everyone's always asked, how many leopards are there? No one knows. But we know trends, and trends are important. The trend is going down, we must do something about it. What are conservation concerns? This goes for all your species, so we won't harp on it. Habitat loss. This is with everything. Humans are growing, human populations are growing. In South Africa, we put a fence up. That's how only way we can protect it. In the rest of Africa, there's no fences. But slowly, humans encroach on these animals. The numbers go down, and we start having populations vanishing. Prey depletion for leopards. Everyone wants food, so we go and we take all the food away from the leopard. What happens? Leopard numbers drop. And then we start killing them. And this is, leopards aren't going to survive very long. And when we look at legal, the legal persecution, we've got trophy hunting in South Africa. If a leopard comes and starts eating your cows, sheep, goats, whatever it is, you can get a permit, you can destroy that leopard. And we'll get. And then this is not counting illegal persecution. So we've got 150 hunters, we've got farmers shooting illegally with permits, and then we've got the. And there it is, we've looked at every aspect, and we're trying to solve all these problems together. When you want a leopard project, is the project that I was working with. It's up in northern Zululand. You know, if you want to go and hang out for 8 years, that's for sure. My wife up there, she wasn't my wife at the time. We got married while there, we had children whilst we were there. My son grew up to 6 years old, and all of a sudden I got to put him in a school, and here I am. I had to leave the bush because the schools up there aren't great. So I moved down here, and then you run around scratching, seeing if you can make things meet to provide a good education for our children. The project is 10 years. That was running. It's the most intensive leopard study done anywhere in the world. We've got scientists training us from all over the world for advice on how to solve certain problems. And it's not just leopards. Leopards is just an example of a solitary species. So when it comes to mountain lions, jaguars, tigers, everything we've learned on leopards, we can use on those species. Now, why Kunda Private Game Reserve? I don't know if you've been there. If you have, if you know Zululand, we've got the Mkuzi Game Reserve. That's the more well-known one, the state-run reserve. Right next to it is Kunda Private Game Reserve. It's a long, thin game reserve. So if you look on the green arrows, that's the Mkuzi Game Reserve. Why are we studying leopards in Kunda? Because it's a buffer. It's on the edge of a protected population. Anything that's going to happen, any improvements we make to leopard populations or conservation, we're going to see that in the buffer area. If you go study the source population or the fusing population, we're only going to see changes there in about 5 years' time. So it takes too long for us to monitor the changes that we make. That is the main thing. And then along the other boundary, we've got leopard hunting, we've got cattle farms, we've got communities, we have persecution of leopards. So we studied 76 different individuals over this time. We monitored mothers having cubs, the cubs growing up, some of them, a lot of them got killed, and we'll get into that. So over this period of time, we studied 76 different individual leopards. Unfortunately, we got cholera in them. Collars aren't great, but later when you learn about how many leopards we saved, it was an essential part of our study. Some people put implants into the animals. We don't want to do surgery on animals in the open field, risk of infection, etc. So we did use collars. I don't like collars, but it was the only thing that we could do at the time, as far as technology goes. As batteries improve, collars get smaller. We also use something called camera tracking. You might have heard of this. It's an infrared triggered system. It takes photographs of leopards. The top map there is the outline of the window with little dots on it. That shows where we had these camera tracks. It's all scientific. It's statistics that we use. And what it does is we run these cameras in specific areas for a certain period of time, and it tells us how many leopards are in that area. It gives us a density of leopards. How do we know which leopards are individual leopards? Their spots are like our fingerprints. So whenever we photograph a leopard, we look for a specific pattern, and then we can pick up that pattern in other photographs as the same individual. So that's the nice thing about leopards, is that we can individually recognize them on cameras. After, when we arrive there, the first thing to do is obviously get your baseline information, and there's our baseline information on that map. The top light grey area is your Pusi Game Reserve. There's 11 leopards per 100 square kilometers. Don't worry about the numbers, it doesn't mean a whole lot. Again, we look at trends. There's at 7 leopards per 100 square kilometers, and down here on the farms is at 2.5 leopards per 100 square kilometers. So you can see the gradients of leopards. High density in your source areas, low density in your sink areas. So the first thing we looked at is the hunting industry. People are hunting leopards continuously. In KZN, what was happening is that they were all hunting these leopards next to Pindar Game Reserve. There's a certain amount of hunts that are allowed per province. The Popo is 80, KZN is only 10. Happening is all these leopards have been hunted next to Pindar Game Reserve, which was great for science, obviously, because we could see the impact of it at a larger scale. But it's not great when people are allowing a certain amount of leopards to be hunted in an area. They expect that to be spread out over a massive area, not in a little small area. And then there was a few little other smaller details within it. We won't get into too much of it. But what we did is basically we created a structure. We went to KZN Wildlife and said the way that leopards are being hunted right now isn't working. We can't have these high populations. So along with them, they work very closely to us. We made it that you would have to evenly distribute leopard hunting. Up, left, or right, doesn't matter where you look, we made zones. So that one leopard hunt would go to each zone. So we just took a simple thing of spreading leopard hunting out. That's all. A few important things that we did. But all the time, we collected data all the time. Most conservation efforts, no one collects data, they just do something, walk away, everyone takes pictures with it. Know what happens afterwards. We stay. When it comes to the farmers shooting leopards because they were killing the leopards who have been blamed for killing the nyala, the prey species of a leopard. Nyalas are highly valuable to some farmers because they sell them and trade them. So KZN Wildlife is issuing destruction permits when a leopard ate an nyala. So the leopard wasn't even eating livestock, it was eating its natural prey source. Historically, the farmers were getting destruction permits for those leopards, and that's a bit unfair according to us. Then that farmer could bring a South African in to hunt it and make 20,000 rand on each of these permits. So all of a sudden, farming nyala, and everyone was making an absolute fortune out of leopards, and leopards were absolutely from Zululand. So just those two little key points, the one in the hunting, the destruction permits. In the destruction permits, we made it that only livestock. While you can't farm into the nyala, that's for leopards. So if you continue your life, prove that leopard. is the problem leopard, then you can destroy that animal. Just those two key points are the main things that we did in 2005. Okay. We got that baseline data of how many leopards there are. We made basically those two little changes, and then we can see what happened. Before the yellow line, changes. Of leopards in Pimlico Private Game Reserve was 40% that. 40% every single year. Obviously, we've got recruitment from cubs, but on a whole, the population was dropping. Okay? As soon as we made those changes, that became only 13% annual mortality rate, from 40 to 13 in such a short time. And this is why science is important. We had all of this data. So from a negative population growth, it went up to 16% population growth. In the first 3 years of the project, we watched 19 cubs being born. Only 3 made it to sub-adulthood, and none made it to a breeding age. So we watched all these cubs being born, and they were all dying. And we'll get to why they were dying. Then the litter size went from 2.2 and went down to 1.3. The litter size reduced. Why is that? We all thinking, should the litter size increase? It doesn't. As the population starts doing well for itself, the litter size drops because of the leopards actually start killing themselves. This is a good indication that they're starting to reach a level that we want them at. And then male tenure. How long a male holds a territory? This is the crucial component. If the male leopards started holding territories for a much longer period of time. And why is this crucial? Because if you kill a male leopard, the new male comes into the area and kills all the cubs. They're not his cubs. He's not going to sit there looking after the leopards whose arms his. And this is seen in a lot of animal people. So, as soon as you get a male leopard looking after territory longer, cubs survival increases, leopard population grows. Who's being hunted? Male leopards. So that's the problem. You've got to be careful. Too many male leopards, you turn over these male leopards too often, you're going to destroy your population. Never mind, there are people that are hunting female leopards. So you're taking away your breeding focus. Yeah, this is the stuff. So all we did is did the right science. We went back with the camera trap survey. There's the first map that I showed you in the beginning. 2 years later, Mkuzi, you can see Mkuzi Game Reserve stays very much the same. It just wobbles around. That's because it's at a carrying capacity, or what we assume to be a carrying capacity. Panda, from 7 leopards straight up to 9 leopards per square kilometers in 2 years. And as soon as we took this pressure off those leopards, they recovered. 2 years later, Panda shot over Mkuzi Game Reserve leopard species. So this shows you just make little tweaks. It wasn't massive things, but it was just obvious stuff. And immediately, and what it is us catching wildlife and talking. And it took years to get it right. It wasn't just walking, saying these many changes and walking. It's a lot of talking. But it was worth it. And then Panda came back down and all wobbled around a bit. Now Panda's wobbling the same as Mkuzi. It just shows the population recovered, stabilized with the new model that is in place. Even on the farms where they get hunted shots, etc., they had a higher density. So what happens now? Now we look at this, we made a little experiment, let's call it that. Now what do we do? We've got scientific data. Now the Department of Environmental Affairs is saying, please help us with the other provinces. And we are. We're in all these different places where we can help now these other provinces with their leopard hunting. It's a very basic thing. From South Africa, we're in Zimbabwe, we're in Namibia, we're in northern Mozambique. Why? Because we've got scientific data, we've got the answers. We don't need to guess anymore. So now everyone's now looking at us for that information. Obviously, we give it out for free because it's all about saving leopards. But what did we do? We looked at hunting, we looked at farmers killing them for destruction permits. What's still left? Illegal persecution. And what happened is while I was studying leopards, and we started getting more into it, a lot more illegal persecution cases popped up. I hear about someone killing leopards, I get involved in police cases, police trying to keep you DNA. And slowly I realized, oh, this work we did is minor compared to this. And that's what we'll get into just now. That's also what the rule forms about. I'm just going to show you 2 interesting maps here. Open the game reserve here. This little patch here. This is the male leopard we collared him. Well, there's a cell phone collar, so it sends us information. Mozambique right up into Swaziland. Unfortunately, got caught in a snare in Swaziland. Okay. which just keeps showing. We try to find the routes, the special routes that these leopards are using. He was almost in Kruger National Park, the poor guy, and he got caught. So he's part of my film. Here's another one. Patrick Game Reserve, I need to spiel. Reserve. So this starts picking up a big with each other, you know what I mean? So we say, well, if you're going to hunt leopards, firstly we want to know population trends. That's what the cameras are for. We're doing it now throughout KZN. We can monitor population trends. We're not interested in that there's 65 or 70 leopards. We just want to know, is it going up, down, or stable? If it's going up or stable, we can continue hunting at the level that we are now. Just now I'll tell you why we even tolerate hunting. But if it's going down, we need to reduce the number of leopards being killed, if it's illegal or however it is. So we're going to start monitoring the, now, if you've got 150 leopards being hunted every year in your country, get that information. Don't just let those trophies go up. We want to know, well, what is being hunted? That's a lot of data that we're losing out. If the quality of the trophy is on this end, the populations are fine. Because a hunter wants this, he will wait for this. If majority is on this end, we've got a problem. It means that we've run out of these guys and they're having to hunt those guys. So trophy quality is very crucial for us, and it's something that we've started looking at now. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing, and I don't want to debate hunting either here. But 90% of leopard range falls on privately owned land. And we have to engage with this privately owned land, because that's where our leopards are. It's not in our national parks. Now, when you go to that privately owned land, what do those guys do? They catch leopards and they game farmers. Now, most of them will just poison every leopard in sight because those leopards are competing with their income. But if that landowner is allowed the odd hunting opportunity and getting financial gain from having leopards on his property, he stops poisoning them and he leaves them there. So that is why we tolerate hunting, and that is why we have worked very closely with hunting. We for sustainable hunting, less hunt than the population. This is the reality of it. So, I'm going to pretty much put in the beginning, because you guys all think in this time it's close hunting. I don't. And then the trends, population trends are important. We're not interested in how many leopards are hunted. If it's 100 last year and then 50 this year, then there must be a problem in the population. That doesn't possible. It doesn't teach us anything. People must effort to hunt. Again, before that, we're getting everyone to fill out. It gives us the effort that goes into their hunt. If someone's not really trying, we need to know that, so that we don't misunderstand these population trends that we see. If he's putting massive effort in, and he only gets, then we're going to be worried. So it's all about this. What effort goes in, and what's the trophy quality. So what we do is we make them take photographs of the leopard. We can age leopards by their teeth into fairly broad categories, and facial pictures, scarring, nose, the nose goes darker with age, etc., etc. With all these pictures, we can fairly accurately put a leopard into a certain age group. And these are the age groups up there that will help us look at the trophy quality. The older the leopard, the better it is for the system. If you hunt only leopards over 8 years old, there will be zero impact on the population. So if the hunters were doing what they wanted, which is to get a big leopard, and they just hunted in that category, there will be zero population. Leopards live very hard lives, they're extremely territorial. By the time a leopard gets to 7 years old, he's too old. And the next youngster starts pushing him out. And then they normally do get pushed out. If you hunt him, impacts on the population. So obviously that's where we want the hunters to hunt. So now we've looked at the hunting, we've looked at the destruction permits, What's next? The illegal persecution. Two main components. Number one, illegal bushmeat trade. This is the biggest threat to predators in Africa. It's taking their food source away from them. And this is in Central Africa. There's these massive paper parks. You know, on the map it looks like there must be so much game team in there. There's supposed to be wildlife there that you go there, you can't even find a small antelope species. It's completely wiped out for food. You know? And it's not sustainable harvesting for your family. We're talking about big organizations. You go in there, wipe out all the food and sell this bush meat on the black market. And then the illegal skin trade. I don't know if you've heard of it. I didn't in the beginning. Now I know a lot about it and it terrifies me. But there's the illegal skin trade that's going on. Bearing in mind that a leopard is a protected species by our laws. It's a top species. There's no difference to you carrying a leopard skin or a rhino horn in this country as far as the Biodiversity Act stands. Yet you'll see thousands of leopard skins. Imagine carrying a rhino horn down the street. You'd be in a lot of trouble. This is a big component of our work now. We've been working closely with organizations and the affected parties to come up with a peaceful solution. It's not a fight at all. And this is a big lesson that I hope we'll learn from tonight is the way that we overcome all of these challenges. The main thing with farmers, when I first arrived, I went to their fighting. You killed my leopard, swearing, we have arguments for an hour, walk away. Not one leopard was saved during that argument. Then slowly, over the years, I realized, hang on, let me understand this guy's side of this side of the story. And let me work with him and understand it and then see how we can improve it. And from dealing with the farmers is how I learned how to tackle the illegal skin trade. And we'll get into that now. So then the leopards I was studying, just in 1 year, I was involved in 17 illegal incidents of killing leopards. And that includes police calling me or our own leopards being killed. My informant informed me of 100 leopard skins coming from Zimbabwe to the mine in Joburg. Where were all these leopards heading? The royal family. So what are we hiding from them? Now I'm starting to realize, hang on, where's all this stuff going? And obviously we'll get into the Shembe religion in a bit, which is another component that I only learned about much later. There were skins coming in from Botswana, skins that were legally hunted because they were problem animals, were illegally coming into our country. With their CITES laws, you can't just bring leopards across the borders. And then 15% of all the leopards I studied were killed by people, by snares, by poisons. There's no poisoning. That top one there's poisoning. And we've seen cubs start to death post-poisoning. You know, all this horrible stuff. This leopard stuck in a snare. An old snare. Snares never stop working. The snare could have been 2 years old, then they just left in the bush. It killed. Where literally all of them lost mobility. The one lifted half of his foot off because it couldn't feel his foot anymore. And they had to amputate toes, and finally it got killed by a male. But there's some horrible stuff you see from the snaring incident. Okay, the legal bushmeat trade. We've kind of covered this. But there's two components. The one you're removing the food source, the other one I forgot to tell you about, and I did now, is that leopards become bycatchers. They set snare lines of over 100 snares in a night. And then obviously any predator moving through these areas will be snared. The highest, the predator at the most risk is a wild dog, because they can't sit still, they're running all day, so they get snared at high rates. Leopards are luckily a little bit more calm, and they slow down, so they don't get snared at such a high rate. This traditional wear, Zulu culture, and the royal family. We'll look at each of these components. We'll grow that understanding as we move along. Secondly, religious wear, the Shembe religion. Depending on who you are, etc., but a lot of the men in the Shembe religion acquire a leopard skin and they wear it on Sundays during the. You will see it on the video. And so it's growing with it. It's taking the culture, and that's growing. So even when it crosses into another culture, the use of leopard skin seems to be going with it. But great work's being done with it, working very closely together peacefully. If we look at the culture, just around 18th the Zulus, it was mainly saffron later became a component of attire. It was only around 1890s that it started to be worn over the shoulders as we know it now as a normal button. The Shemi's 1930s is the first occurrence of the use of leopard skin within the religion. So these are quite recent events. And we won't get all into it, but from the Zulu aspect, the chiefs in the past had the power of issuing you with a leopard. That is where it previously occurred, when Snoop Dogg or Snoop, he had a leopard on stage, big skin too. Theoretically, that is legal leopard skin that there should be, because that is the culture of the leopard skin. It's become worn later. Over the shoulders was a much later. The Shemis are wearing it because the Shemis are very conservation oriented. They love leopards. They love the look of leopards, the aesthetics of it. That's why they wear it. And that's why the solution I'm coming up with is working. It's got a different cultural aspect. There's not a whole lot of the power of the leopard being brought into it. In Zulu culture, you could issue the king with a leopard skin, he'll give you a cow. So it's not about getting that power yourself either. It's got to do with the significance of it, the same as the Ferrari for us as well. I just wanted to show you this because the lines are getting blurred. Within the royal family, you can wear it. Now the elite can also wear it. Okay, so Zuma is allowed to wear it because he is elite. But here he came on SABC News. This is a picture of himself and of the TV wearing a cheetah over his shoulder. This is ridiculously illegal. And no one blinks an eye. It's a cheetah, it's not a leopard. It's got nothing to do with Zulu culture. But not only are the lines getting blurred as far as who can and can't wear it, even the species, the spotted cat now. When I go to the gatherings, there's a lot of serval, there's a lot of cheetah I'm seeing there. That has got nothing to do with the culture. But these lines start getting blurred. And I'm saying, let's define them now before it's too late so that we can at least save the species, which is, bearing in mind, our big five. I mean, you speak to any guest, they want to see a leopard and they're going to engage it. What are the solutions? The leaders need to lead. When a leader stands up and says, hey guys, we're killing all of our population, then the people listen. No doubt, this is massive in the Shembe religion. When Shembe himself says something, everyone listens. So that's a big component of our solution that we're working with all the time. All the leaders know of me and they know of what we do. And no one's against it, it's just reduce demand. I mean, if we could do this with Iran as well, this is the winning, we'll win the battle. The first thing I did is, what is the demand and how do I reduce the demand? That's the way to fight it. You can't fight it in physical fights or public fights, etc. That's not the problem. That's not the solution. You've got to understand it. As soon as I found out that it's for aesthetics, I realized, hey, we can do something. Now, how do we reduce the demand? You go to the masses and try and get them to reduce purchasing these skins. And you'll see how I did that. And then on aesthetics, luckily leopard skins are becoming expensive. I provided an alternative. So later when something happens, they can't say, but what do we do? You know, what now? I've got the what now. So that's not an excuse anymore. Education is massive. The Shemis love leopards. When I show them pictures of how many leopards have been killed and dead leopards, and the ones that you guys will see, they don't want to look at it. They don't realize the impact. This all gets cut off emotionally at these gatherings, where you buy from a gallery. If you ask anyone where do you get a leopard skin, it's not from Zululand in a snare. It's in a gallery. You know what I mean? So it's completely separated. And then we're going to have to enforce the law. According to our Biodiversity Act, anyone with a leopard skin, as with a rider, will get 50,000 rand fine or 5,000. Our Biodiversity Act, that is it. You can see all the people in the background. Okay, solutions. I'm not going to go big into this. We'll watch the video now. It will kind of give you a background of what I've done. But I've been working on this specific thing for 4 years. It has been an absolute nightmare. I won't lie. And when the documentary comes out, you'll see it, how long it did take and all the challenges we had. I've been to China twice to try and resolve all of this. The one time was to catch snow leopards on the Tibetan plateau, and while I was there, I quickly worked on this. But that's for another talk, and we'll get into it in a bit. Education is massive, I've already spoken about this. And then law enforcement, this is a trial I worked on. This guy was caught with 92 leopard skins in his shack. 2 years prior, he was caught with 64 leopard skins in his shack, and community service, etc., etc. Skins, repeat offender. I did all the DNA testing. On this case, I was a witness. I spent months outside the court, and finally I got thrown out because of there's just no two ways about it. But those technicalities put aside. So he's still out there doing still trading. And, okay, obviously a project like this, and when you see the trailer and what we've got here, I do have a sample of what we have achieved. These stories, there's science behind it, there's out-the-box thinking, there's coming up with solutions, and there's a peaceful way of working through it, so it attracts attention. I was 200 young South Africans by Mail and Guardian. The Men's Health magazine, the Game Changer one, that was in February this year's issue. I didn't have my shirt off though. And, I had an illustrator, and I looked terrible. I should have gone for the photograph. In the media, we did CNN twice, Hard March. Also, I didn't get into as much trouble as you did. The French Press Agency, and then all sorts of newspapers throughout the world. I'm turning down articles now maybe once a week. And the reason I'm turning them down is that we start building tension with the church when we run all of these articles, because it's illegal. And it states that it's illegal, and then the church gets a bit upset with us. We obviously trying to promote it to raise funds, because it's I'll just chat afterwards a bit, but we're donating 1,000 of these things to the church, you know. So we need to raise money for all of this, but the church wants it to be quiet. Yet the church is setting a precedent for the world to follow. They've acknowledged something, they're changing it, they're willing for the change. It's amazing. I want to blow the church out of the water to the world, because it is something absolutely amazing that they're doing. And later we will, once everything settles down. But it's got massive media attention. Back to the talking side of it. So I came out of the bush, I didn't have a job, my boy had to go to school, so I thought I'll start telling people about my experiences. And so I've got a few little talks that I put together. I did it in small events, long life learning and those kind of things, and then at each event you just get asked to come to another one, to another one. I do want to write a book. I've got a lady that I've actually started dictating notes to. I can't write. I'm terrible at English. You know, this is what I do, unfortunately. So it's all about creating little, and as I do one presentation, it leads to another, I adapt it. I've got a few different ones that I'm growing along the way. Obviously, catching snow leopards in China, I took my handy cam. I did almost die there, and I had it on video, so that always makes it exciting. People enjoy seeing you almost dying. So don't forget that in your book. It's not fun at the time. But China's horrible, and Tibetan Plateau, 5,000 meters above sea level. It's the toughest time of my life. I think 15 kilograms in a month. It was really bad. I did see snow leopards before. Studying leopards, I mean, you know, 5 years of actively pursuing leopards, living out in the bush, my family at home, for weeks at on end trying to catch leopards. There's a whole bunch of experiences that come with that. There's claw marks on the roof of my car. I darted a leopard and he attacked me. I'm always not in a closed car, I'm always in an open car. This time I took a closed car because he had already attacked a group of people so that was lucky. So I knew I was in trouble when I was going there. And I just darted out of little windows, wound it up, and then you just kind of sit like this while the egg beaters kind of go on the roof. This leopard is an amazing story. Quick, behind this one, after he attacked me, he ran off. I wasn't go after him, I let him be, went behind grass. I thought, okay, I know where he is, I'm going to leave him. He then stuck his head through the fence, I didn't know this, and he went to sleep with his leg through the fence. So when I got him, he was dead. He had strangled himself. He was stuck between two fences, so we had to get him out of that situation. He was attacking people, there was nothing we could do. When I pulled him out of the fence, he was dead. So I gave him mouth to nose, And within about a minute, he was breathing again, and he revived, and we threw him over the fence, and he lived. So everyone's like, no way, you send a letter. Well, I'm like, it's a draw. I kind of This is how I spend weeks on it. There's my car, there's my mattress. I take all these out, I put my boxes here so that the hyenas and lions, if they sneak up on me, hopefully I hear the boxes fall over. And I sleep there, and then if I catch them and dart them, all of this all by myself for weeks on end. So it gets very exciting, a bit lonely sometimes. Can you imagine? And then obviously living on game reserves. There's nothing easier about living on a game reserve. Ask my wife. The bread and milk's an hour away. With this, I don't know if you heard, and beyond, we have 6 rhinos from Punda Game Reserve to Botswana on the Delta. These are the rhinos. I had to look after them for a month. Then we were the security for them to Botswana. What a fantastic thing to be involved in with wild rhinos. But as they start getting used to you, the forest cobra was under my fridge. Mate calls me, there's a snake at home. So I rush home. He says about this long. So I'm looking for, I can't find the snake. I go through all the kids' toys outside. I go through all the toys, can't find it. And I look under the fridge. And I said, how long is the snake? Because all I could see was the side of the, look at the size of the snake. And she's like, no, this long. So I found the wrong snake. Thank goodness I did it. Forest cobra, the chased me, and I released it in front of volunteers, trying to show them, like, Crocodile Dundee, the snake chased me down the road. And I ran the street like a so it didn't go well. But that's a whole presentation on its own. My wife's got 1,000 stories. My son was chased down the lawn by an elephant. You see a little boy screaming, this big bull chasing him. So you can imagine, unfortunately, I'm named at this time. Son did get bitten by a Mozambique spinning cobra, 3 months in hospital to try and save the boy. So there are massive risks. I've lost friends out there because car accidents and things, you're just far from everything. We've had elephants, kill people. It's a tough life, but we do it for the animals. This is why we do it. If it was all boring and everything, we wouldn't do it. So my wife thought that she was going to get away from me getting maybe mauled by rhinos or leopards or whatever, come to the city. Now I've general managed the Zoo Safari Park and catch black mambas and crocodiles, so she's not too chuffed with me. That's me. Thanks a lot. I'm going to show you a clip now, and it's a trailer for my video, for my documentary. Please, you'll see the website. Go check it out, and then afterwards, feel free to ask me any questions. You can't contain leopards. They go wherever they want to go.
We're gonna listen to guys who love to follow me. So natural music, exploring information, and even if you guys into other countries, also love to know areas.
We've been tracking these moving north for the last 3 months using the GPS and software technology.
2 weeks ago, we lost this city. When we reached the area of this last location, we picked up a mortality signal for it. There is a community in that area, so there's a possibility that he got punished. Leopards have already lost 50% of the historical range. And they do it through their low density, so we are starting down the middle, the same middle distance that follow. We established now that leopards have been targeted by poachers. The question is, for who?
I said that unity is approximately 5 million skins, and we need to have more skins because our church is growing every day.
No one has done for what to apply for possession of leper skins.
there's at least 500 sensors. It's a much bigger problem than I originally thought. Even though we try to do it in a peaceful manner, for now we've been evicted from the property.
We have a maximum of 500 people in KZN, but we have 4 million members of the church, and that's just a little tough.
We can't just last on the same skip. You know, we're going on 2 blocks, so we're going to have to look at a different way in trying to solve this problem. If we're looking into the younger generation, that I came up with an idea of making phase skip, because they call that phase skip realistic. How much is it for the goat skip?
There's spots around, I think it's everyone's unique. So which spot patterns do you want people to like the most?
The next step from that is how to make this look like this over here. We had an area inside Beijing where we're going to look in some fabric shops and hopefully find some furs and paint this and find out what's possible with like this and for us.
These machines are restricted to 4 colors, so you have to choose 4 colors and we can blend this.
They've never done a competitors on that big or that big, which we have done.
Then we are afraid if there is no part of our case to finish where we live for. But if you cut up with a new thing, we can replace the real one. I mean, that's what we win. That's what we will say.
They take this to the leader accepts the product, then, I mean, this is huge. This could be the pinnacle of this whole road that we need.
Thank you very much, Tristan. Stephen, would you mind putting up the lights for us, please?
Push both on.
Thank you. We're not finished with you up here. Okay, any questions? We have, can somebody just give me the time? Exactly. 10 past. Lovely. We have 15 minutes. I'm saying lovely to you. Thank you. We've got about 15 minutes, and anybody have any questions?
Comment. You're an amazing human being. It's on radio, but one is just often less speeches, so that I kind of battle to find the words to put it together what I perceive. What's interesting for me, we do have a feature called Hangout, and it would be interesting for me to know that from you in terms of what do you say to people who involve rhino conservation if you, as you put it, the battle there is already lost? How does one begin to engage them? Because obviously you are trying to do some sort of thing.
It's not a fact that it's already lost. I think the problem is that there's so many organizations that have been generated. So all this money goes into 1,000 different organizations. There's a handful that do good work. So I say we've got to keep fighting the battle in the field, which is where our money's going. It's fighting against that rhino poaching. The problem is that there's a million rhino poachers across the border that will replace that same guy that you shoot there. So we've got to keep doing that until something else is being done on the government, or wherever that is. So I never say stop, and I will never stop. I've got an organization that costs us 100,000 rand to ambush a group, to bring a group of rhino poachers into the reserve. It costs us 100,000 rand in informant fees. So that's where the battle is. We're still raising money for that. We will keep doing that until something will happen. Even if that something is that we finally run out of rhinos, who knows, hopefully not. There is still a whole lot of options, and I'm not saying good or bad, but there's trade, they're working on a lot of things, but we've got to keep fighting.
Question from the speaker's point of view. How long did it take you to put together this?
I've had presentations with thousands of them, you know. So today's one, it probably took me about an hour to adapt it to a 30 to 40 minute one. I've got 2 hours and then I've got 20 minutes, you know what I mean? But originally, I mean, what's nice with it is that this is my life. So I put a word down and I actually got to hold myself back from talking too long. You know, the biggest part is trying to find nice pictures to keep you guys, well, not nice, but you know what I mean? Keep capturing you on that moment. But if I had to do this, probably getting to end on the same day.
Thank you, Claire. You go next.
My question is related a little bit to what you're saying, but it's about funding. From what I understood, is you're doing this selective conservation on your own. With Pantheris. Where is the funding coming from?
Most of it is right now America.
So not even from Africa, where
No. The South African component is very small, but yeah, it's mainly Americans. And Panthera's got a massive base of funders. Panthera was an offspring of the Wildlife Conservation Society. The cat conservationist went across and created Panthera with the chairman, who's a multi-billion-dollar mining person who strip mines and absolutely destroys the environment. This is his thing. And however you get the money, it doesn't matter. And so he comes with a whole base around him. So that's where most of the funding. This project, this first project, he's personally funding. He loves it so much that he's personally funding probably half. But South Africa has got a lot of money into leopard conservation.
Any other questions? Ganesha and Stephen?
I believe that the cheetah is called cheetah. Perhaps is that why someone is using one?
You're not the one on the webcam.
Yes, I have another question to nobody has.
Stephen has one.
Okay.
Go for it.
Some of your data, from what I saw, ended 2008, 2009. Is there a plan to bring that up to date?
A good question, thanks. We did a 10-year study. Now, bearing in mind, we're interfering in those leopards' lives by being there, collaring them, etc.
Right.
After that 10-year study, we had the data that showed improvements in the population is stabilizing. If we carried on studying them for another 10 years, we wouldn't learn anything more. So we went in and removed all the collars. We were done. We didn't want to be there anymore in collaring leopards. So we stopped it all. We got the data. Now the biggest project is using that data to expand on our program. Yeah. So it wouldn't make any difference going back.
It's still at the, what do you call it, sustainable level of
Yes, it is. And so we've got long-term program in place in the camera trapping. That we're not going to stop for 20 years. So we can monitor from a distance.
That's nice.
And we're starting more of these camera trap sites throughout South Africa. So we can monitor through that. But us physically being there and catching them, I don't know.
How many leopards were?
Yeah, I mean, throughout the whole site, you're looking at 30 leopards. At one site, bearing in mind they're territorial, so you're only going to pick up mainly one female and one dominant male, some youngsters, and then couples.
So it's kind of a thing is like one camera.
But one camera doesn't. No. It's not like hundreds or. It's absolutely.
So in terms of the Shembe people and that fake skin project, have they accepted the fake skins? Are they still going to be hunting leopards?
Okay, good question, because the donkeys, you gotta wait for the next talk. I'm kidding. We've been working very close with them. When you're dealing with 5 to 10 million people, you're never going to make everyone happy. But the leadership of the church we're working closely with, they 100% behind us. To say they endorse it, not at all yet, but there's already, when we start going to gatherings, 10% of the people we see are wearing our faith clothes. And then with the challenge by one of the Chambi seniors saying that within 2 years he wants only 30% to be real skins and 70% are players. Now, that's the component altogether that they've accepted it in the way of the followers are taking it. We've got a big donation phase in place now that will later taper off into a subsidized fee. You can't just donate and walk away. It doesn't solve the problem. So there's a long-term plan in place. Plus, we talked with KZN Wildlife where we want to come up, what are all the solutions from it's 100% illegal and we'll arrest every single person in possession with one, to every single one can have a leopard skin, all the middle ground, and then we'll bring all the affected parties in, including royal family and the Chambi religion, and say, okay, where can we define this? How are we going to move forward? Who agrees what? So we've started something that has never been done, and that is to actually discuss the topic. And there's not going to be a grey area when we finish. So that those groups or cultures or religions can use a leopard skin, and these tiers within it can. And anyone outside of that, and the religions will support us in that, will be arrested or you hang in your skins and you get a free fake one, whatever. Everyone's going to.
Something I'd like to comment on just quickly is you've often mentioned the scientific aspect or the latest technology, and just for example the collar band getting smaller. And I think this refers to our business as well. We need to start working smarter because there's so much more that we can do when we keep up with technology, and we know exactly where we fall short there, because I'm sure your technology has helped you work smarter in our industry. Yeah. Any other questions quickly? I would also like to cover specifically speaking, and most of the questions have been about the leopards, which is quite okay, but a little bit more balanced. Who's got a speaking question? Just as I go around your superior knowledge, that's my speaking. Yes, Roger. Robert. Yes. No.
Is it? I do charge. It depends. I'm getting a lot more charity organizations asking to speak, in which case then I charge half or something. If I'm talking for Panthera on the base or raising money for the organization, there's no way to charge because I work for Panthera still. But when I do other public speaking, I do charge.
Was there ever any outcome of Devil's Casino reaching?
No, that's my point.
Nothing,
nothing.
No comment, nothing.
Not even
Not even
Facebook, nothing.
KZN, Sandbox, nothing. Why?
Well, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this, is that
Who noticed it? I mean,
a friend of mine sent it to me.
The minute the picture comes up, you can see, obviously, that it's
Yeah, but there wasn't an outcome, not even the NGOs. Yeah. No, but because it's norm now. It's no one's fault. It's just we've left it for so long that it's part of our life now. And there's not enough leopards for it to be part of all of our lives. So we just need to bring it back in. But yeah, that's why. I mean, after these Chambi gatherings, which are massive in the Nanda Dam area, and more than welcome to go there. I mean, they'll blow you away at what you see. You can go into KFC and see leopard skins. It's fine. It's all okay. It's against the law, but no one will go and arrest you.
You see, it's almost because it's accepted, because it's a religion thing. So you accept the legislation, but now it's a cheater. Now it's like branching out to something else.
Yeah, but I think, but that's the point.
Yeah.
It's just blurred.
Stephen and Fred.
Just a practical one again, your work on the farms. The farmers pretty much are out there and they pretty much have a law on their own. How do you know that farmers aren't just poisoning the leopard and then not telling anyone? How do you control that?
You don't. The farmers we dealt with is different because you build relationships. There's a lot of farmers we know and openly will poison them, even though it's illegal. You can't win all the battles. There's a bunch that it's not worth the effort anymore. Rather put effort into the borderline routes. You know what I mean? But of course, I mean, that can be ongoing, but that's how we've got monitoring systems in place. So that if there's a massive sink in that area, then we can act on it. The only thing that, unfortunately, the only way we could act is to reduce the number of hunts that can take place. It's the only thing that we can control, which is probably unfair because there's a whole lot of illegal stuff going on that's not benefit to leopard conservation.
Or inspire the farmers' wives and children by showing them your video.
Exactly. Well, that's hence the documentary.
Yeah.
You know, which will go out nationally and internationally. Yeah. The national part is a whole educational movement. We're going with it. When I show you, the swing tag is in Zulu, and it's all educational about the impact that's being had, and that's the important part of it.
Well done for your work.
Thanks.
Just, sorry, it's Fred, and then if we can have a quick one from you, Mohammed, and then we're going to have to vote.
Sorry, you mentioned you were on CNN. How did that come about?
You just get approached. A producer got hold of me. We did 2 stories, one on this, and then another one on just following me to catch a leopard. We get flooded with press now, mainly to head office, and they just redirect it to me. But we've taken a lot of film crews through the guns to do this stuff.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Have you heard of Ian Thomas and his presentation on Power of the Tribe?
No.
He's from Gauteng, and he was also in conservation like yourself. He was in game reserves and so forth. And he started filming lions, packs of lions. And he's got a presentation that he's been doing now for about 30 years. And he goes throughout the world. And it doesn't come cheap. I saw an invoice of his recently, 22,000 for an August presentation. But he's excellent, I hear. I'm going to be seeing him maybe in about a month's time. And what's interesting for us, as public speakers, is that he's built it around the theme of leadership and what management and leaders can learn from a pack, how they work, training, working as a group and so forth. So that's very interesting.
That is good. Every time I do it, my talk changes. That's something that you should know, because you start feeling different components of it, and it does start stepping away from actually what it is to something else. But the good news is I'm going to bump up my invoice. Not that I know what's out there.
Look, I have to say, sorry to interrupt, but Ian charges a lot more than that. Ian's a PSASA member. And if you're getting it for 22,000, you're doing very well, because I think he's spoken in 60 countries. And it's the same speech. He has exactly the same speech, and he takes it around the world, and it's brilliant. But he charges a hell of a lot more than that. So yes, do bump up your price. I encourage all speakers, push your price up. You speak to Robin, push your price up, because she earns more.
For him to do that is because it's his life.
Yes, that's his life.
He's not saying a speech, it's not learning stuff, it's like you, it's his life. So you can look at something and relate 5 million little incidents to that. So for Ian, it's so natural and it's so easy. He's right up there with them programs.
Yes, absolutely. And he's complemented it with the book. So whatever he's saying, because he's a photographer as well, wildlife photographer. So he's taking out the photographs and he shows you in the book itself the story that he gives you on the video. These are the guys, and this is how they were caught, and so forth. And the book is, we look at the actual words, not more than about 3 pages of A4, the words themselves, but mainly the pictures. It complements it.
So you're definitely in the right place. So if you want to stick around for a few months or a few years, yes, you've got to join this one to grow your business.
I don't even know you, yes, so I'm doing that a lot. And there's a lot that I need to learn about. I mean, I'm a conservationist, I'm not a public speaker. So there's a lot to still learn. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, you can speak to Tristan again after the meeting while we're having dinner. Just in a small gift, a token of our appreciation. Thank you very, very much. And the dinner is down the passage and past
To the dining room.
To the dining room. Yes? And just in closing, I really want to say thank you very much to everybody for being here. The new venue, a new vibe happening. I was very excited for tonight. Thank you for your contribution. And I'm sure next month will run a little more smoothly. And enjoy the rest of your evening with us. Thank you.